Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the End Zone Enthusiasts. I'm Paul, and we are going to do our picks for week 7. So, as you can tell by the bottom of the screen right about there, our current picks are 59 and 33. So, not exactly where we were in the beginning. Last week, we went 9 and 6, I believe. We have only had one losing week, and everybody had that losing week. I mean, nobody was picking that week there. So, we're kind of right the ship there, but I think this week is a little bit more clear cut on what we got here. So before we get started, I always want to tell you about our shirt. This is the Jersey Devil over at Six Flags Great Adventure. It is a single rail roller coaster by RMC. Very unique one. There's only about 5 to 10 left in the country right now. This is one of the longest ones here. Kind of a clone of the one they have at Magic Mountain, but gotta love Great Adventure. If you love haunts, highly recommend their Fright Fest. Now, without further ado, let's talk about who is on bye this week. So yet again, we have another week where we have only 2 teams on bye. And the reality is both of these teams really needed this bye. Buffalo Bills are on a 2-game losing streak. Pretty much they got to get their defense healthy. They need to get a little bit more out of Josh Allen and the crew there. They need to kind of shake it off. They start off strong at 4-2, but the last 2 weeks, them and the Eagles both definitely dropped off. So the bye week could not have come at a better time for Buffalo. Meanwhile, Baltimore, they got to start the season over. They're 1-5. They're 1-5. I don't see a path, especially right now with the Steelers being 4-1, that they can take that division. So they're really got to right this ship as soon as possible, get Lamar healthy, get their defense figuring things out, because they can't afford to get any more losses. I think they maybe 2 more losses. They might be able to sneak in at 9-8. But the reality is, looking at the AFC, they probably need to be 10-7 for them to have a legitimate shot. So that only gives them 2 more errors that they can make. So both of these teams need to shake off the rust and get it going. Now, I'm doing this on Thursday night because I've been pretty busy, because the reality is this is a busy time of the season for me with my day job being a wedding photographer. So right beforehand, we're dropping this right before the Thursday night game. And this is a battle of the AFC North. Pittsburgh going against Cincinnati here. All right. So Pittsburgh at this point is 4-1, and they've just been winning. They actually are a top 5 team in my power rankings, because while it's not pretty, and they definitely should have lost to New England, with all those turnovers, New England basically gave them the thing. But all in all, Aaron Rodgers is doing what Aaron Rodgers needs to do, which is basically making the right decisions quickly and getting the ball out to his to his receivers and whoever it needs to. They're getting steady offense, and that's what seems to be the name of the game. The big flashy offenses this year are kind of falling on the wayside. It's the guys that are consistent. Look at your first, second, third read, getting it out. First, second, got it, getting the ball out. Getting it out there quick, utilizing the running attack. And, of course, the defense with T.J. Watt, at any time they can break the game open. Meanwhile, I got Cincinnati, who pretty much fell apart after Joe Burrow went down. They won the first 2 games, and now they are 2-4. Not a good position to be. And they got so desperate because Browning was good 2 years ago when Burrow went down, but this year was giving the ball away there. They went with Flacco, who also surprisingly has been doing nothing but giving the ball away. So at this point, I don't know if it was a step up for them. Flacco's a little bit more seasoned, kind of like Aaron Rodgers. And you know what? With this game, I kind of like the throwback to a few years ago when you had Green Bay going up against Baltimore and you had these quarterbacks helming it here. So you have one team that's going one direction and one team going the other direction. So what's my pick? Simply, Steelers win, and they take a commanding lead in the North, with Baltimore not playing and Cleveland, well, being Cleveland. This is another game that they could basically jump another game on top. If Cincinnati can pull this out, it could make it a little bit more interesting. But the reality is, if the Steelers win this, that division is almost locked up. All right. So now we're going to get into our Sunday games. Now, I'm off this Sunday, so I get to enjoy these games. But another overseas games, part 4. This is 4 in a row that were overseas. And this is another fantastic matchup for overseas. Last week, you had the Steelers going against, I believe, Minnesota. Steelers were going against Jacksonville, which was a really good game. Came down to a couple mistakes here and there. Jacksonville, just like Minnesota before them, got to spend 2 weeks, basically a full week there, probably like 10 days. So they're there again. This time you got the Rams and Jacksonville. So the Rams last week, they won, which is good, but they're getting into situations here where Puka is hurt at the time of this video, which is Thursday night. We don't know if Puka's going to play. So with that being said, that means a lot to the Rams, all right? Because the Rams at this point there, they should be better. They shouldn't have the losses that they have. The Eagles game was a fluke, but then they got manhandled, all right? So with that being said, the Rams need to right the ship, kind of like the Eagles need to and Buffalo needs to. There's some teams that started off strong and they're a little bit weak. The Rams have dropped the 10th in our rankings now because of their questionable how they're doing things. So with that being said, the Rams are playing below expectations. Meanwhile, the Jaguars lost last week, but it was a close game against the Steelers overseas. The problem was the offensive line. Trevor Lawrence was getting his butt kicked royally. I mean, literally 7 sacks, I believe. That's unheard of, all right? And Trevor Lawrence is not a drop-back passer. He can move in the pocket. So with that being said, they need to clean up that. But their defense on Jacksonville has been a turnover machine and a scoring machine with the turnovers. So here you kind of got two teams that kind of taking a step back, trying to gauge where they are. Are the Rams as good as they're supposed to be? Are the Jaguars playing over their head and they're going to start falling back down to earth? Well, my pick is the Jags are going to bounce back, and I think the Rams are probably favored in this, and I think that the Jags are going to pull the upset here. The Jags, I don't think you're going to – I mean, they have verse with the Rams, but I really think that Liam Cohen's going to scheme for verse and be able to get the ball out quicker. Basically, ETN is kicking butt this year. They're going to probably use A-Train. They're going to use him a lot. No, ETN, sorry. A-Train is Miami, so I get those guys confused. But with that being said, I think the Jags are going to pull this off. I think it's an upset, and I'm kind of calling this an upset, but the reality is 4-2. They're going to be 5-2 and nipping at the heels of Indianapolis. All right, now we're going into our Sunday ski things, and we got a lot here. It's going to be closer than you think. Every game I want to kind of give a cute little title. Now, Thursday night, it's not cute there. But when it's the Sunday games, let's talk about the matchup here. And this matchup is the New Orleans Saints, who have one victory and have a young quarterback with Rattler who has been looking better every week. Going up against Caleb Williams, who, unlike Rattler, who was a 3rd, 4th, maybe 5th rounder, Caleb Williams was number 1. So there's a lot of pressure on him. And the Bears have started to right the ship too. So let's talk about the Saints first. So the Saints at this point there, you got some veterans with Olave. Of course, you've got the running attack, which is, Kamara is just fantastic. I don't know if he's a Hall of Famer, but he's definitely like the wall of, Saints. In the Saints history, he's going to be up there with Kamara. People are talking about trading him. I don't think there's a reason to trade him. I don't think he wants to go either. And Rattler has been looking better. The problem they're running into right now is their defense has been bending and breaking. And, of course, their kicking game is a little bit shaky there. Meanwhile, you're talking about Chicago. Early on, they look like the same old Chicago. But it looks like Ben Johnson is starting to figure things out. And Caleb Williams is getting better every week. So you kind of got a team of veterans and a quarterback who is doing very well with Spencer Rattler going against Chicago, who's kind of the same here. So really kind of a 50-50. I know on paper, Chicago should be dominating this, but I really think it's going to be a much closer game than you think. That's why I'm saying closer than you think. But with that being said, I'm going to say the Bears are going to take it just because I'm still not 100% sold on the offensive line of the Saints and their defense not giving up the cheap one. Meanwhile, with the Bears, I think they just have a little bit more talent with their running attack and passing attack. I think Swift does not get the love that he deserves. He is definitely a solid running back. Yes, he's not a superstar like a lot of other guys, but he's somebody that he reminds me of a James Conner, where he slips under the radar, but then all of a sudden you're like, oh, he's got 1,000 yards. Oh, he got 1,200 yards. I think that a lot with Swift, and I think Swift is going to be the deciding factor here. Even though you got Kamara, I look at Kamara as somebody who's more of a passing threat, receiving threat out of the backfield, while Swift, I think, is a lot more pounded, right? So I'm going to go with Chicago on that one, even though it's tough. Next game is, does anybody really want to watch this? It is Cleveland going against Miami. And one of these teams we were expected to be here. So Cleveland, they got rid of Flacco, which I kind of question, but I guess you got to see what you have in your quarterback. So they're going with Gabriel, who is a lot shorter than I thought he was. I thought he was a typical 6 foot, 6'1". I didn't think he was like 5'9", 5'10". So that is always going to be a disadvantage because you have a wall of people in front of you that are 5 inches taller than you. So you really got to drop back there. I mean, yeah, you have the Drew Breeses, but you got a lot of short quarterbacks who just do not make it in this league. Going up against Miami, who has a short quarterback, but just has been playing down. They make it close. They're not getting blown out in games, but they make 1 or 2 errors every week that cost them the game when it comes to Miami. Is it a coaching problem? Now that Callahan's out of Tennessee, the next guy up is Mike McDaniel, Mike, whatever his name is, McDaniel, is the next guy that I would say is in the hot seat, could be gone at any week. So here you got Miami that probably has more talent than Cleveland. But then you got Cleveland, who has that killer defense who could just crush Tua. So yet again, what I'm liking about this season is you've got, it seemed like in the past you got a lot of, oh yeah, this team's definitely going to win, and oh, this one's going to, it's tough to do a suicide pool this year, or survival pool they call it. Somehow I'm still in it. I'm 6-0. But the reality is it's tough every week. And this is the reason why. Is the defense going to overpower Miami, or is Miami going to right the ship and overpower Cleveland? Well, I kind of go with the flip coin, and I literally did. I did flip a coin, and heads was the Fins. I'm going with the Fins. But really, this one could go either direction. But my guts tell me that the Dolphins are going to take this, and the coins tell me that Dolphins are going to take it. So I'm going with the Dolphins. Next one here is new coach, new groove. So you got the new coach at Tennessee, which yet again is Mike McCoy, I believe, who was with San Diego Chargers, now the LA Chargers. So he is a coach that has head coaching experience. So that's a positive for Tennessee. I always wonder why coaches would bring in people with the head coaching experience, knowing that if you get fired, they already have your replacement on the roster. So kind of weird like that. But they also had Callahan's dad, which they had to get rid of because you can't really put the father in charge after you fire the son, right? So there might be a little bit more vigor with Tennessee this week because when you throw in a new coach, people are playing for their positions. The new coach has no loyalty to anybody at this point. Meanwhile, I got New England, who is, thanks to the heads up, in first place in the AFC East. Is it just me, or do we think that New England should have had a few more down years before they started coming back? You have a dynasty, 5-10 years ago, where you won like every Super Bowl, 6 Super Bowls or whatever it was. You kind of feel like you need that low, but Vrabel is an excellent coach. Drake May is making the right decisions. They got a solid running attack when he's not fumbling. You got Diggs, and then the defense, that's where Vrabel shines. Even with Tennessee, when Tennessee was having bad years, the defense always shined. So you basically got that. Also, like I just said, you've got Vrabel, kind of a revenge game on Tennessee. So you got a lot going against Tennessee. You got a new coach. You got a team that your quarterback called ass. And you got the revenge factor with Mike Vrabel. So you throw that all together, Pats are going to extend their lead in the East. With Buffalo having a weekend off and they're being tied, boom. They're going to have a full game, 2 games above Buffalo at this point, which kind of scary if you're Buffalo. Next is going to be the felon is back game. Yep. Rashid Rice, I believe, is back this week. And too soon. Too soon. Now, when Kansas City, who's not loved by many people at this point, just because they're a dynasty and Travis Kelce kind of, Patrick Mahomes is on every commercial. So you're kind of like, they're not big fans. But when they walked around with free 4 shirts, seriously, let me remind you, this is what Rashid Rice did. He was 40 to 50 miles per hour over the speed limit, racing on a public highway. Gets into a car accident with 2 other cars, some with small kids, some with young families and stuff like that. And then he called the cops. He stayed there, filled out the reports, and took full responsibility. Oh, wait, no. I'm sorry, that's not what he did. He grabbed his stuff and ran, leaving people who could have been injured and probably were injured there, and just left. I'm sorry. You should be in jail. The fact that you did not go to jail, and the fact that you got a 6-week suspension instead of a full year suspension for your childish behavior, blows me away. And I ponder, if he was a Cleveland Brown, or if he was a Jacksonville Jaguar, or if he might have played for the Jets, would he be back so soon? Would he? Or did the fact that he plays with Patrick Mahomes and the dynasty, did he get an easier case? I guess we'll never know. But I think we kind of know. So that being said, they're going up against the Raiders, who finally get a win last week, which was nice, but kind of insulting. They win against Tennessee, and the Tennessee coach gets fired. So that's kind of a backhanded victory. It's like, yay, but ow, right? So you got Kansas City going against the Raiders. The Raiders at this point there, if Geno can stop making the big mistakes, they have a fighting chance in the game. Autry is doing a lot better at this point, running back wise. He's starting to show why he was a number 1 pick. You got Geno Smith, you got Jacoby Myers, Chip Kelly. Haven't been impressed. Expecting more creativity out of him. Haven't seen it. Bowers may be out, may not be. I think he's doubtful right now at the time of recording this, but they do have a decent backup tight end there. So with that being said, the Raiders are not a pushover like they were in the past. Meanwhile, I got the Kansas City Chiefs. And last week they won with no penalties. They played a perfect game. And then there was that questionable turn, that touchdown that was no longer a touchdown and stuff like that. So the Kansas City Chiefs are doing pretty good right now. They're 3-3, and they have their felon back. I don't know if he's a felon by trade, but I'm going to call him a felon because it probably should have been a felony. Did I mention that he ran from an accident that he caused? Was backing up? Yeah, he backed up. Oh, no, he was going 40 to 50 miles faster than the speed limit. Yeah, Kansas City. But with that being said, I'm not here to judge, even though I am. The Chiefs get a winning record. Chiefs. Why do I keep saying Chiefs? Oh, my God. The Chiefs get a winning record. They will beat the Raiders, but I think they could have beat the Raiders even without the felon coming back. Just think that the Raiders at this point, you have an older coach who's not doing a bad job, but all in all, they've been making way too many mistakes. If they can beat the Chiefs, I'd be very happy. But I'm saying that Kansas City is going to win that. Next game is a must-win for both teams. Now, if you follow the channel, you know I'm an Eagles fan. By birth, I'm a Philadelphia sports fan. Not one of those, even though kind of sounded like it with the Chiefs. But I am an Eagles fan. And the last 2 weeks have been, actually the whole year has been kind of humbling. There's been, even when they were 4-0, it was a shaky 4-0. There was a lot of games that they should have lost, and they won. The Tampa Bay game is one in particular. The Rams game is one there. But the last 2 weeks have been humbling, and losing to the Giants the way they lost to the Giants with that talent on the roster, and you can't really blame injuries. Yeah, the line hasn't been 100% healthy, but offensive line and even defensive line because you had Jalen Carter out. But, man, that was kind of embarrassing. Going against Minnesota, who did get a win last week, playing the old quarterback for the Eagles, Carson Wentz. So, but their quarterback situation has not been great. So much so that I have Justin Jefferson on my fantasy league, and it's painful, guys. The quarterback can't get them the ball, even Addison. So you got a situation here where the Eagles are weak is the corner, especially if Mitchell's out. If Mitchell's out, it's going to be a nightmare. Going against Addison and Jefferson, that could be a problem. Now, Jalen Carter is supposed to be healthy. Hopefully we get a pass rush, but we haven't gotten a pass rush, and our leading sacker at 1.5 sacks has retired, Smith. So that being said, where the Eagles are weak or where the Minnesota Vikings are strong. So I think it's going to come down to, can the Eagles defense shut down Carson Wentz? And that's what the question is going to be. So we're going to see. But I'm saying the Birds are going to win. But if they don't, Philly's going to burn. Philly is going to burn because they have the talent. They just need to get the victories. So I'm going to say the Birds are going to win. But, man, I definitely am getting a little nervous about that game. Let me grab a little bit more. It's Dr. Pepper, guys. Don't get panicked. Little horse, and I do this in one take. Next one is a new cat in town. What's going on with the Carolina Panthers? 3-3, people. 3-3. And Bryce Young is looking good. And they got a win streak going. And they're beating teams that are legit. Oh, man, I got tickle in my throat. Sorry about that. Going against the winless Jets. So the Jets, I don't know what's going on. When I watched the game, and I had to watch the game last time because it was the only game on, they look like if they get behind, they give up. And that's not good for Aaron Glenn, because I really think Aaron Glenn has a good shot at being a decent head coach. He's got the pedigree. He's got the defense. But if a team's giving up on you this early in the season, it's not a good sign. Meanwhile, you got Carolina, who's been beat down last year and beat down this year, really starting to find their stride. And they're doing it with Dobble, who was a rejected running back from Dallas. But him coming into the game 2 weeks ago has really changed that offense. It's exciting now. And him doing that has opened up Bryce Young. And now they're going to these games thinking we can win these games. And they're beating legit teams like Dallas. So with that being said, Kitty goes meow all the way to victory. Yeah, it's one of those things where the Panthers, I think, are going to be 4-3. They're going to be a legit team. And instead of Tampa Bay being able to run away with this division, they got to worry about not just Atlanta, but you kind of got to worry about the Carolina sneaking in. So, yeah, congratulations to Dave Corrales. This is great. I think you're a legit team and your schedule helps you out. Next one here is getting high. New York Giants against the Denver Broncos. This is going to be a tough one. So you got Denver, who beat the Eagles, but the Eagles don't look like the Eagles anymore. And they squeaked out a victory overseas to the Jets. So, yeah, their last two victories were victories, but I think it was more like the other team losing. Meanwhile, the Giants are on a win streak here with Dart. Now, I know it's a win streak of 1, beating the Eagles, but, man, that was their Super Bowl. And the thing about youth is sometimes you don't know you're supposed to be bad. And the fact that Scatterboo at this point has no problem being 100% concussed all the time, that's what I'm thinking. He was born with a concussion. And then the fact that Dart refuses to lose, yet again, kind of Baker Mayfield-like. This should be an easy pick for Denver. But the Giants are just dangerous. But I have to pick a winner. And I'm saying the deciding factor is going to be the Denver D. Yes, you got Scatterboo, and yes, Dart is running and throwing and all that. But Neighbors being out I think is going to be the difference here. I think without Neighbors, their passing attack is a C minus, and I think the Denver defense is just going to put the pressure on the run, shut down the run, and Patrick Surtain is taking out whoever they think their number one wide receiver is. So I'm going with Denver, but it's going to be a fun game. The best matchup of the week is going to be Danny Dimes, i.e. Indiana Jones, going against the Chargers. Now, the Chargers stopped their 2-game losing streak last week. Congratulations. You're now 4-2 like a lot of other teams. And it is in LA. But there's something about Indianapolis here. They have the winning formula. They have the running attack with Taylor. They've got the passing attack with, the wide receivers are very solid. But also, their new tight end from Penn State, Tyler, is really lights out. He is playing above what I think they thought. And Danny Dimes is not making mistakes. And they have a decent bend, don't break defense. And they're going up against the Chargers, who they look dominant, 3-0. But then the following 2 weeks, they looked really sus. And even last week, they got the victory, but wasn't a big victory. So with this one, I got to go with who's hot. And that's the Colts. I think the Colts, it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a 3-point game, maybe 7. But I think the Colts are just a complete team. I have them as my number 2 in power rankings just because they're complete. They don't have a weak spot. And Shane Steichen, I think, did an amazing job. Got the guy he needed behind behind the wheel there before they were going with all these patches, hoping that Anthony Richardson was going to be the guy. He was smart. He got a solid quarterback. He's protecting him with that offensive line. He's got a great running attack, and he's able to make his reads and make the correct reads. So, Indy, dude, you're going to be 6-1, baby. Now we got an NFC East battle. And does anybody else remember when these games used to be like marquee games, like this was the game of the week? Does anybody think that anymore when Dallas is involved? You got the Dallas Cowboys against the Washington Commanders. Now, the Commanders are the one team that scares the heck out of me being an Eagles fan in the East. However, when they had a chance to tie us, they laid an egg against us, against the Chicago Bears. So before that, basically, Jayden Daniels was undefeated. But now that he slipped up, they're starting to show their age there. You got, Scary Terry, I don't think is going to be back. I haven't seen the report, but I think he was questionable last time I saw. So he might be back, and that might help him out a lot. But with that being said, the running attack, they have a rookie, but he's not as good as people say. And the defense is old. Meanwhile, you got Dallas, who has a great offense, a fantastic offense. Got the most yards as an offense. But their defense is so bad, who knows, maybe they could have used a guy named Micah Parsons or something like that. Might have helped them out. But their defense is so bad that it becomes a shootout. So I think the winner here is going to be, probably Aubrey, which is good because he's on my fantasy team. But in Daniels, I trust. I just don't think that defense in Dallas, I think they are a bottom 3, bottom 4 defensive team. And I think Washington is going to right the ship, and they're going to find ways to win. Yet again, Dak seems to find ways to lose. Daniels finds ways to win. Next one here is, who's legit? Who's legit? Green Bay versus Arizona. So Green Bay, first 2 games look like the best team in the league. I didn't have them as number 1, but they were definitely top 5. But then they kind of fell away. They tied with Dallas. They lost a game they shouldn't have lost. And they're starting to find their ground again here. But are they good or are they bad? Meanwhile, we got Arizona, who finds ways to lose. And the perfect example of that was a Tennessee game where they had it locked up. The guy's running in for the touchdown. He drops the ball because he was showing off on the 1-yard line. And then that allowed Tennessee to come all the way back and score, I think, 17 unanswered points to win. So who's legit here? Well, I got to say the Pack is back and they're still going to be on top of the North. Believe it or not, that tie, 3-1-1 with a bye week, puts them at a higher winning percentage than the 4-2 Detroit Lions right now. So right now, the Pack is the number 1 team in the North, even though they're the most squishy team in the North. I got back in my power rankings as an honorable mention because this game is going to determine who are you, and that's what we need to know. And then the game of the Sunday night game, another Sunday night good, and it's a good game. It's the Atlanta Falcons who, if they play the way they played last weekend, they are going to give Tampa some headaches in the South. Going against San Francisco, who yet again has lost another superstar. Every week they're dropping a new player. This time it was Fred Warner. Before that, it was Nick Bosa. Both of them were out for the year. They got Kittle, who's on the IR, but might be coming back. You got Purdy, who's sometimes playing, sometimes not playing. But then, of course, you got Mac Jones, who is playing lights out, but he's also the walking wounded. You got wide receivers. It's a mess. So Atlanta last week looked dominant. Well, San Francisco is just dropping bodies left and right. So because of that, the Falcons are back. San Francisco, you can't keep taking these injury hits and keep standing. And that's what killed you last year. You would have thought that people got healthy. The only guy healthy is the guy that you would never think is healthy, Christian, Christian. So Christian, he's the only one healthy right now. Everybody else is banged up. And because of that, I just think Atlanta's going to take advantage of it. So we got 2 Monday night games again. And this one's game of the week. Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Detroit Lions. Now, on paper, I still have Detroit as the best overall team with talent. You got that full header running attack with Montgomery and Gibbs. You've got, Amashari Raw as a wide receiver. Goff is playing mistake-free football. You got great tight ends, and you got that defense, which is just a lockdown defense. So and they're still number 3. For me, they're still the number 3 team, even though they lost last week against the Kansas City Chiefs. Did I say Chiefs again? Chiefs. Sorry. I speech impediment. So I still think they're the top talented team. But then you got Tampa Bay. And they're 5-1. And there's no way they should be 5-1. Their top 3 wide receivers are hurt. Now, I don't know who's coming back this week or if any of them are coming back. You have Bucky, who's one of the most explosive running backs in the league, out. Still, and I think he was doubtful. So I don't know if we're going to see him on Monday, on that end there. The only thing you got going for you is Baker on that offense. Meanwhile, your defense is bend, don't break. They're pretty solid. The coach has always been great with the defense there. So really, if you're looking at it from an injury side, you got to go to Detroit. If you're going with a talent offense, you got to go to Detroit. Talent defense, got to go to Detroit. Talent special teams, maybe Tampa. So it's all saying Detroit's going to do it. And it's at home. It's in Detroit. So everything's telling you that it's got to be the Detroit Lions. Detroit's taking this. So why the hell am I going with the damn Buccaneers? Baker doesn't lose. The only game they lost was kind of a fluke game against the Eagles. The Eagles got that, block run back. If they didn't do that, Buccaneers probably are 6-0. There's something about Baker this year, kind of like with Danny Dimes, a.k.a. Indiana Jones, that they're able to will their team to victory. And nothing more than Baker. Baker at this point, when he had that 3rd and 13, and he basically did that himself, running through tackles, diving, stretching out, and then 3 plays later, throwing that dart to, no offense to that wide receiver, I don't remember his name. He's not one of the top 3 receivers, but throwing that dart and that guy catching it, he's exciting. He is just playing the game the way it's supposed to be played. So even though Detroit the smart money's on Detroit, I can't go against Baker. Baker's got to bake. And the last game is Houston against Seattle. Now, these are 2 teams that are considered B students. You got Houston, who look like dog and probably have no chance of getting that division with how Indianapolis and Jacksonville's playing. But they've been turning it around the last 2 weeks. They've been looking better on defense. They've been looking better on offense. The offensive line is still crap, but they're able to scheme things a little bit better. Going against Seattle, who going into it, how good was Sam Darnold going to be? Hey, you just gave up, Metcalf. How's that passing attack going to be? Well, Seattle has been up and coming, and I really think they have a chance to take the West. So that being said, I'm going to say the Hawks are going to soar on there. So let me go through real quick here. Boom, 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 boom. So the picks to win is Pittsburgh over Cincinnati tonight. We have Jacksonville going against the Rams. We have Chicago beating the Saints. We have Miami beating Cleveland. We have New England beating Tennessee. Kansas City Chiefs beating the Las Vegas Raiders because it's the Raiders. I have Philadelphia winning, or the city's going to be burning. Carolina beating the Jets. I have Denver beating the Giants. I have Indianapolis beating the Chargers. Washington beating Dallas. Green Bay beating Arizona. Atlanta beating San Francisco. Tampa Bay with an upset of Detroit. And Seattle beating Houston. So, guys, once again, this is Paul, the End Zone Enthusiast. On Tuesday, we're going to have a wrap-up, let you know how we're doing. Once again, we are 59-33. And on Wednesday, we're going to be doing the power rankings. And a week from today, we're going to let you know who we think is going to win Week 7. So, fly, Eagles, fly. Baker's got it bake. And Bills, enjoy the week off. You deserve it.